The year was 1873, and early summer had turned the prairie gold, dust curling off the dry earth like memory rising from a grave. The wind, warm and patient, carried the smell of cattle, distant lavender, and ash from something once sweet. From the eastern road, a wagon rattled, tired wheels singing of places left behind. In it sat a woman whose beauty had dimmed only in wealth, not in grace. Beside her, a little girl with hair the color of creek water sunlight clutched a cloth doll, missing its arms. Their faces bore the quiet of those who've learned not to expect kindness, but who still hope for it, silently. The ranch came into view, its bones weathered, fences leaning like old men resting on memories. It was no grand place, but solid, proud, as if daring the world to forget who built it. Zelma May Riggins pulled her daughter closer and whispered, "Be still, baby. We're here." She didn't know if it would last. She only knew the man who'd agreed to take them in hadn't smiled once during their brief talk. Bo Maddox, widower, rancher, protector of a dying mother, had eyes like gunmetal and the heart of a cliff. She had heard the stories. Everyone had. He met them outside the house, arms crossed, a hammer hanging from one thick wrist. His shirt was unbuttoned to the middle, sweat darkening his collarbone, muscles cut like stone over his forearms. He said nothing at first, just stared. Then, "You're only here for my mother." "That's it." Zelma nodded, her voice low but steady. "Yes, sir." He looked at the girl. She quiet. Zelma placed a hand over Lottie's shoulder. "She'll help where she can." Bo stepped aside. "Your room's off the kitchen. Don't make noise past sundown." It was not a welcome, but it wasn't rejection either. And for a woman like Zelma, used to slam doors and cold glances, it was more than she expected. The room was small but clean. A shelf with folded quilts. A basin with clean water. A small window facing the east. Zelma ran her fingers over the worn table and nearly cried. Not from grief. From gentleness she didn't have to beg for. That evening she cooked with practiced hands. Beans with smoked salt, biscuits browned at the edges. She crushed herbs in silence and hummed an old tune from back when she still believed in May weddings and linen dresses. When she brought a plate to Bo's mother, the old woman blinked up from her pillows, skin translucent as rice paper. "I don't need feeding," Sybil Maddox rasped. Zelma placed the plate down anyway. "It's chamomile and soft bread, ma'am. Good for the throat." Sybil watched her with a strange familiarity. "You got widow eyes." Zelma paused, then knelt gently. "Yes, ma'am, I do." A silence hung between them, not cold, but threaded with some old, feminine understanding. Sybil took the tea in a shaking hand. Out on the porch, Bo sat with his boots propped and a kerosene lamp flickering beside him. He saw Zelma slip out barefoot, carrying Lottie wrapped in a blanket like a bundle of lilies. "You sleepin' in my mother's room?" he asked flatly. "No, sir. Just settled her. Lottie sleeps with me." Bo didn't respond, just lit a cigarette with the kind of sigh men give when they've forgotten how to be kind. The next day, town whispered. Mrs. Haverly tilted her parasol and muttered to the baker's wife, "She's already moved in. No ring. Just her and that child. The gall." "She's too pretty to be desperate," someone answered. "She's exactly pretty enough to be dangerous." At the general store, Zelma stood in line behind hushed judgment. She kept her chin up, basket light, tea leaves, flour, a bar of lye soap. Lottie tugged at her skirt, asking for peppermint sticks. Zelma said no gently. "Widows shouldn't wear lace," one woman whispered as they passed. Zelma wore a modest white collar trimmed in threadbare embroidery. She said nothing, but her knuckles were pale on the basket handle. At the ranch, Bo mended fence posts beneath the sun. Zelma brought water, silent. He took it without thanks. "You don't have to wait on me," he muttered. She looked at the sweat on his brow. "I didn't." He blinked at that. Watched her walk back toward the house, braids swinging with each step. That night, Sybil ate everything Zelma made. "You remind me of someone," the old woman said again, halfway through her beans. Zelma smiled faintly. "I get that sometimes." Later, Bo found her sewing by candlelight. The quiet glow softened her cheeks, caught the glint of copper in her dark hair. She didn't look up when he entered, just kept stitching. "You always fixing something," he grunted. She nodded. "Fixing keeps me from breaking." Bo lingered at the door a moment too long, then stepped back out without a word. On Sunday, a ranch hand's wife came by with a jar of peach preserves and a whisper, "You got a good one, Zelma. You keep cooking like this, he'll marry you in a month." Bo overheard. That night, when Zelma offered him stew, he pushed the plate away. "I don't want lies served with my meals." She blinked. "Sir, I ain't your good one, and I sure ain't marrying anyone." Zelma's lips parted, but no sound came. Only a slow nod. She took the plate back, quiet as snow falling in a church. That night she cried in the washroom, kneeling beside the tin basin as Lottie slept with her doll tucked beneath one arm. Zelma sobbed into a towel, biting it to stay silent. She had come here to serve, not to hope. Foolish, foolish heart. The next morning, the bread was left on the counter without note. Bo ate it anyway. Days passed. Zelma began taking her work outside, cooking on the back stove, washing on the clothesline, far from Bo's sight. But she still made his tea just the way he liked it, without asking. He still drank it. One afternoon, Lottie sat on the porch steps beside Bo, eating a plum. "Mr. Bo," she asked, leg swinging. "M.M. Do you like my mama?" He nearly choked. "What?" "She makes good tea. And she hums when she's sad. I think she's the best person." Bo looked down at her. "You talk a lot." She nodded proudly. "Mama says talking lets the hurt out." He stared at the horizon. "Your mama's strong." Lottie grinned. "She cries when she thinks I'm sleeping. But I hug her real quick, and she pretends not to be." Bo said nothing, but he didn't move either. That night, Zelma found a wildflower on her pillow. One of the yellow ones that only bloomed after heavy rains. No note, no explanation. She touched the petals with fingers that trembled more than she liked. And that same night, Bo found his stew waiting for him again, still hot, covered with cloth, and beside it a note in delicate script. "Thank you for letting us stay." No name, no flourish, just that. He ate slower than usual. Every bite tasted like something remembered, like a home he hadn't visited in years. Zelma sat beneath the stars, brushing Lottie's hair. Her voice hummed low, an old Appalachian tune about rivers and returning. Inside, Bo leaned against the doorframe, watching, listening, one hand resting over his chest like he was holding something inside from breaking loose. He didn't know that Zelma had stitched the hem of Sybil's quilt tighter that morning, or that she'd patched the hole in the ranch dog's bedding, or that she'd gone without supper twice to save flour for his mother's biscuits. He only knew the house no longer felt like a tomb, and that the woman he never meant to notice had slipped into the walls of his life like rain through cracked wood. In silence, in service, in grace, and he hated himself for wanting more. But wanting he did. He told himself it was pity, then gratitude. But when she laughed soft at something Lottie whispered, Bo looked away like a man ashamed of feeling hope. And yet, he stood there a long time, long enough to watch the stars blink through the dark like questions waiting for an answer. Long enough to admit, at least to himself, that maybe she wasn't just here for his mother after all. And maybe that scared him more than anything. The days softened. Summer turned gentler on the skin, and so did his gaze. Bo didn't speak more, but he noticed more. The way Zelma twisted her hair into a knot when she was focused. The way she touched Lottie's back gently every time the girl passed too close to the stove. How she took off her shoes by the back door as if the house wasn't yet hers, and maybe never would be. One late afternoon, a storm rose sudden and angry. Wind swept in like a thing alive, rattling shutters and slamming the chicken coop gate wide. Zelma ran into the storm without a coat, hair flailing like wildfire, chasing the hens and cursing under her breath. Bo stood frozen by the porch post, watching her wrangle creatures twice her size like a woman who'd never been allowed to fall apart. Then a crash came from inside Sybil's room. By the time Bo ran in, Zelma was already there, holding the old woman in her arms like a child. "I'm all right," Sybil murmured. "Just stood too fast." Zelma tucked a pillow behind her back. "You don't gotta stand fast anymore, ma'am." Her voice held no panic, just steadiness, the kind that comes from having seen worse and surviving it anyway. When Bo stepped in, rain dripping from his coat, he didn't know what to say. His mother's head rested against Zelma's chest, and for a second, just a second, he saw what a wife might look like in his home again. Zelma didn't glance up, didn't speak to him. She simply adjusted the blanket over Sybil's legs and wiped a damp cloth along the woman's temple. Bo turned and left, but not before he caught the sound of Sybil whispering, "That girl's got the soul of a wife." The next morning, Sybil's strength returned. Her voice rasped but held a brightness Bo hadn't heard in years. "That woman," she said as he handed her a cup of warm milk. "She's not just here to cook. She steadies things." Bo didn't answer. "You don't gotta marry again, son," Sybil added, eyes glassy. "But if you ever did, that one's got patient hands." Out the window, Zelma helped Lottie carry 2 pails from a well. She was laughing at something the child said, head thrown back. The sunlight caught on her lashes, turning her into something almost unreal. Bo watched her longer than he meant to. Later that day, he gave Zelma a handful of coins. "For supplies," he said gruffly, eyes on the floor. Zelma looked at the coins, then at him. "Thank you." He grunted, already turning. But when she returned that evening from the general store, the supplies in her basket were modest. Oats, potatoes, thread, and 1 cream-colored dress. Simple, modest, but soft. She hung it on the peg near her room, like she didn't expect to wear it soon. He saw it, asked nothing, but his voice caught when he said, "You bought something for yourself." She hesitated. "Just a Sunday dress." "You should," he said after a beat. She smiled, and he didn't look away this time. They didn't speak of the dress again, but it stayed there, hanging like a quiet hope. One evening, Zelma found the old saddle torn and half-mended, left near the barn. She picked it up, ran her hand over the cracked leather. "You fixin' that too?" Bo asked from behind her. She looked up, thought it might still be useful. "Not everything needs savon." Zelma's hand stilled. "Some things don't want it." Bo stepped closer, shadows playing across his face. "And some things can't be fixed." Zelma's voice dropped to a whisper. "That's not true." He turned sharply. "You think just because you sew and clean and make tea for my mother that it means something?" Her lips parted, hurt flickering across her face. "I don't want your heart," she said, voice cracking. "I just wanted to leave you less alone." She walked past him into the house, her back straight but breathing uneven. That night, Bo sat alone with the saddle. He turned it over, fingered the tear. Then he picked up her needle and finished the stitch she'd started. The next morning, Zelma found the saddle mended. She didn't speak of it. She just baked him peach cobbler and left it on the table. They sat on the porch that night. The air smelled of rain-drenched cedar. Lottie slept inside. Bo handed Zelma a tin cup of tea, their fingers grazing. She said nothing. He leaned slightly toward her, as if drawn by something unnamed. She turned her face toward his. But just then, Lottie burst out laughing in her sleep, calling, "Mama!" The moment broke. They parted like strangers. The next morning, Zelma rose early to hang laundry. Town gathering was that afternoon, and she meant to be done before then. She wore the cream dress. Bo saw her and paused mid-step, eyes tracing the fabric against her skin. She didn't notice him watching, or maybe she did and chose not to show it. At the gathering, women wore their finest. Zelma stood at the back, Lottie by her side. People whispered, "That's the Maddox woman now, isn't it? Living there, without a wedding. Indecent." She was always after comfort. Found herself a rich widow. Zelma heard every word. She smiled at no one, but Lottie looked up at her and whispered, "You look like a queen." Just then, Bo walked in. He scanned the room, found Zelma, walked straight to her. The room quieted like a wind had passed through it. "You all right?" he asked. She nodded. "Just folks talking." He turned slowly to the nearest group of women. Voice calm but firm. "She's been cooking for my mother. Cleaning my home. She hasn't asked for a thing." Mrs. Haverly scoffed. "She's made herself a fixture in your house." Bo raised a brow. "And what of it?" Gasps circled. He looked back at Zelma. I never meant to fall for her. A pause, wide and wild. But I did. And I will keep Fallon if she lets me. Zelma's breath hitched. Lottie squeezed her hand. Say yes, Mama. Her voice, when it came, was soft but steady. All right then. The room erupted. Some in joy, others in scandal. But Bo reached for Zelma's hand and held it, not like a claim, but a vow. Later that night, Zelma sat with Sybil, brushing the old woman's hair. You heard, she asked. I did, Sybil whispered. And I saw it before either of you did. Zelma smiled. I didn't mean to. I know, child. That's why it's real. Outside, Bo stood watching the moonlight run silver over the grass. His hand still tingled from where it had held hers. He never meant to love again. But when he did, it didn't feel like thunder or fire. It felt like sitting by a warm stove after too many winters. Like peace. The next morning, Zelma came out to find a ring box on the porch step. Old wood. Inside, his mother's ring. Simple gold. No note. But Bo stood inside the doorway, hat in hand. And in her eyes, he read every answer he'd feared and every forgiveness he didn't deserve. She stepped toward him, hand trembling, but not from fear. And for the first time in years, Bo Maddox felt like a man who might still be worth loving. And behind them, the door stayed open. Because some stories don't end in thunder. They begin in the quiet, with a woman in a cream dress, and a man learning how to stay.